All right, everyone. Last looks. Right on set. Roll sound. Sound speed. Roll camera. Camera speed. Scene one. Take one. Market. And action. Hi, I'm Ed, the host of Savannah on Film, and we explore the economic and cultural impact and values of the film industry in Savannah through conversations with people who work in the industry in related fields. You can find us here on WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul. Hello, everyone. Hello, the world. Welcome to another wonderful episode. I promise you a great episode here of Savannah on Film. And it's only great because of the guest that I have today. He is an Emmy Award-winning filmmaker, and he's had several films that have been on National Geographic. A lot of these films, looking through his filmography, I realized I've seen a lot of his films here. He has worked, he's done productions for PBS, NBC, Turner Networks, you name it. Plus, he found time to be a published author. I always mess that word up, author. He also teaches environmental filmmaking, which we're going to talk about. This is very fascinating. At SCAD, and it's actually a course that he created, and he gets tremendous great feedback from this course and loves doing it. Plus directing the documentary, that's another thing that he teaches at SCAD, and plus he's done screenwriting, you name it. So I want to welcome Emmy Award winning Kevin McCarey to Savannah on Film. Welcome.
Okay, well, thanks for having me. Look forward to it.
I'm so excited to have you here. There's a long intro I could give about you, but I was doing my research on Kevin here, but he has a very expansive career. I don't even know where to start, but let's just start with what was the spark? What got you into filmmaking?
A good question. Actually, when I was young, when I was still in grammar school, for some reason, I decided that I wanted to be a writer. And part of the reason I wanted to be a writer was in the 5th grade, we had an assignment, to write a short story. And I wrote a short story about the Spanish-American War. And I gave the names of my characters the names of the kids in class. Now, if it was a girl I had a crush on, she was a heroic nurse in my story. If it was a guy who tended to bully me, he was terribly, awfully wounded in the process. And from that moment on, I learned the power of creating a story. But no,
how did that go over?
Yeah, actually, it was so popular that the teacher, sort of turned it into a mini series, and I would read continuing episodes during the course. Yeah, it went over really well, except for the bullies.
Yeah, I was going to ask. That was my next question about the bull. And
But
did you get the girl?
well, that's a
Well, that's
story.
another story. That's in the mini series. That's in the first.
Basically, though, I did decide from an early age I wanted to be a writer.
Mhm.
And once I got into high school, I could see there were two paths to writing. One of them was where you go to a university, you get a PhD in English literature, and
Mhm.
you write novels about professors in the university who are majoring in English literature. The other route was the Hemingway route, where you didn't go to school to learn how to write, where instead you went out into the world of adventure.
Right.
You went to Italy during the war, you went to Paris, you ran with the bulls, you fished in Cuba. And that became the thing that drove your stories. Well, those were the stories I was interested in. I mean, I loved the outdoors. I loved that feeling of adventure. I loved that thing that he brought to it. And so rather than going to school and majoring in English literature, I went to New York Maritime College. And I graduated with a degree in marine science and with a third mate's license in the Merchant Marine. And I went to sea for 3 years after that. Um, Following that, I did work as an oceanographer, and I did that for a number of years. At some point, I said, Kevin, you have been procrastinating long enough. Okay, you've been everywhere. You've met some great characters. Time to actually do something about it and sit down and face that blank sheet of paper.
Mhm.
And so while I was on an oceanographic expedition off Peru, I just started writing plays. And I had a play that was produced by the University of Oregon.
Mhm.
And so right away I decided I'm just going to go for it. Finally is time, to go back and learn how to write some of these things. Because I had to take all of these prereqs, since my background, was marine science,
Mhm.
they had just started a film school, and they said, listen, do you want to do your prereqs in the film school? And I said, okay, and fell in love with film. I mean, that was the time, and I'm sure you're aware of it,
Mhm.
where we had Fellini's great films, and we had, the great Scandinavian filmmakers, and, it was absolutely rich and wonderful. And the American films at the time were really, offbeat, eccentric, original, literary, fresh, very exciting. And so that was it. I decided at that point I was going to be a filmmaker. My graduate degree my thesis was a screenplay. And with that screenplay, I sent it off to agents, and I got an agent in Hollywood. And I went down to Hollywood, and I worked changing oil for cars. I was waiting for the so-called big break. And I'd have meetings and meetings and meetings, and the agent would say, hey, do you want to rewrite The Son of the Two-Headed Gila Monster? And I'd say, no, not really. I don't think so. And then out of the blue, I got a call from my brother, who's in New York. And he said, they're looking for someone to do a documentary short on Sing Sing prison. Is that something you can do? And being a filmmaker, I lied and said, sure, even though I'd never made a
You
doc
make it, huh?
at all. Um, so I went to New York and I did it. It was on the prison release program. And it was like out of The Sopranos. It was like run by ex-convicts to help convicts adjust to the new world.
Wow.
And it turned out the guy, was a former mobster who was running it, and the guy getting out, was, someone else who was in the gang. And I thought, I could never write characters as good as this. These guys are absolutely amazing. And it turned me on to the wonders of documentary film.
Hmm.
And I mean, that's where it began. That short film got me hired by Turner Broadcasting to do a series of profiles on people, which led to Portrait of America, which you watched with Hal
Yeah,
Holbrook,
yeah, Al Holbert. I
and
remember.
all the rest. Yeah, that was it. So it was a long story. I'm sorry, but
No, no, no. It's fascinating. Does this any of this tie into your background? Because I think there's a story there
oh,
that
you mean
people can
my
see.
roots? Well, I grew up in the Hudson Valley in New York.
Okay.
Um, we were, I wouldn't say dirt poor, but we were certainly not middle class.
Right.
We're at the lower rung there. My father's dream was to be a cartoon illustrator. And for 2 years, my background is Irish Catholic. Uh, he had a series running in the local Irish newspapers in New York and in London called The Red Hand of Ulster. So I grew up with these pictures of sketches and everything that he was working on, and kind of with a love of story. But after 2 years, they didn't renew his contract, and then he just went into a funk, you know. And we lived in a big Irish family, stuffed in this 2-bedroom bungalow in upstate New York, and that was my upbringing. But the beauty of it was the storytelling. My parents would hang out in the local bars, and in those days, kids were allowed in. In fact, it was sort of like a classic Irish pub, you know,
Mm.
where, there were families all around, everyone getting half looped, everyone telling these, wonderful stories, few of which were actually true. And yeah, that was my upbringing. So I always had that love of a good story well told.
Yeah, my mom's side of the family was Irish, so I
Yeah.
definitely got that. Except my mom was vehemently opposed to drinking.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
She was big on going to church, and she, that, and but this, I mean, I don't even know where to go on this interview because you got so many great things. We're not going to have enough time probably to talk about them all. I wanted to mention some of the Emmy Award winning stuff that you've done. Well, I guess before I pivot there, um, let maybe we should talk about some of Oceans Apart, because we started talking about that. That came out in 2016, and that's the is it semi autobiographical or
It's pretty autobiographical,
yeah,
given the fact, that I am Irish after all. And
right.
so there will be some embellishment of character. But it was interesting when I was writing, and it's essentially a memoir. Um, if I strayed too far from the events, too far from the truth while I was writing it, a little alarm went off, and it said, you can't go there. You can't go there.
You weren't a
Good
pirate,
story.
swashbuckling pirate.
Yeah, it was really sort of like having another angel over my shoulder, overlooking and wagging a finger at me and saying, "No, then this is not a memoir. This is fiction." And so all of the events that happened in the book were true. And basically, it was talking about when I was a cadet at Maritime College. We made every summer we'd have a training cruise to Europe, and I had wonderful stories coming out of that. One of my favorite was in Lisbon, in Portugal,
Mhm.
where I met a bar girl who was on the verge of tears because her parents were in town, and she had lied and told them that she was married. Um, and they were expecting to meet the husband. And after a few drinks, I became her husband and went. And the parents worked in a traveling circus. And that's why they were just into town. And so there I was, with these short little, circus people, pretending I am this woman's husband. So that was one of my favorite stories. And it's so improbable. In fact, when I talked to my agent about it, I said, here was the ending was really this. And the ending was that if you met a bar girl and you came back to the ship at night and your fellow cadets were on the wing and they saw that she didn't kiss you, they knew she was just a bar girl, and there was no congrats there, guys. Anybody can do that.
Wow.
If you came back to the ship and she gave you a kiss, it meant it was the real thing, and they were all jealous because, oh God, you met somebody out there. And when we went back to the ship in the cab and she was going off to work again right after it, we got out of the cab and she actually gave me a kiss with the whole crew watching up there. And I told the agent that, and he said, it'll sound too made up if you include that. I said, I know, and it was true. He said, it just sounds too pat, so I didn't do it. I left it out, Yeah, which was weird.
And this memoir, you can get it on Amazon, wherever
You can get it on Amazon. You can get it pretty much anywhere. You can get it as an ebook, and you can get a hardcover version. The rest of the book is really about shipping out to Vietnam.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was a deck officer on ships carrying ammo into the war zone. Right. And that's a little bit more hair raising. And so, yeah, that was that. And there was a couple of years of riding those ships. And what they were like floating ammunition dumps where at any moment, and they did. The Viet Cong would swim out and attach bombs, to the hulls of these ships as they came up the Saigon River. And if it was an ammo ship, you were in pretty bad shape, So I had a number of stories coming out of that period too. Yeah.
Yeah. My father, his family, they have a long history of being seafaring folk. In fact, if you trace my lineage back, everybody on my dad's side of the family going back into, I guess, the late 1800s or whatever, they all came from an island. So like in the Mediterranean, and so they were seafaring folk, on that side. And my dad married an Irish woman who didn't believe in drinking or smoking. So, an interesting mix there.
So where were they in the Med?
Let's see, Lostova. My brain is going.
Mm-hmm.
Lostova is where they're from. Where they filmed Game of Thrones. What is it? It's Lostova. I don't have a map in front of me. My genealogy.
Was that in like Croatia or?
Yes. It was part of the
at the time
Hungarian Empire.
Right.
Changed hands many times, and so. But that's
you have not been back there, I assume, right?
I've never been there. I had relatives that went. I've had a guest on my show, Patrick Roper, who's been there before.
Yeah.
And, he's and some beautiful pictures from there, and like my relatives that went there and came back, and that's definitely on my to-do list. It's on my bucket list to go there, and I'm big on genealogy, especially my wife. A lot of genealogy, and she found out some fascinating things. And my dad, my grandfather, that I actually, he had passed, I think, before I was born or close to it. I don't really remember him, but he was well known in these parts here as a rum runner back during Prohibition. Wow. So if I retold it today, he'd be a pirate, but But anyway, so there's that seafaring side of my family, and then so I remember watching a lot of America's Cup stuff with my dad, and we grew up, and they sailed. Him and his brother sailed to Bimini, and my sister has restored his wooden sloop that he has, and all that. So it survived him, and fascinating stories. but and that's one of the things, that kind of drew me to your book, and I love the cover of it, Oceans Apart, and you can't see it on the radio, and this is just a crude picture I'll show for the camera, but
Mhm.
there we go.
Yeah,
So yeah,
the second book was about leaving the Merchant Marine, and
this is Islands Under Fire.
Islands Under Fire, yeah, and that was set in a place that I've learned to absolutely love over the years, Puerto Rico. I
Mhm.
lived there for a number of years, and I was captain of a research vessel that was looking at the damage that the Navy was doing to the coral reefs of Culebra. And so we had to sneak into the bombing zone and document, the damage to the coral reefs in order so that Puerto Rico the government could file an environmental impact statement and get them to stop the bombing. But I came back to Puerto Rico over the years. I shot a lot of pirate tales in Puerto Rico. I did a portrait of Puerto Rico um, Portrait of America. I shot a comedy short called San Juan Story in
Mhm.
San Juan, of course, and that was the film that was an Oscar semifinalist, and I loved doing it. So yeah, I go back, and my wife and I spent a Christmas in Puerto Rico just a couple of years ago again. The singing in the streets, the dancing in the streets. I mean, there's nothing like Christmas in Puerto Rico. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, and Puerto Rico over the last several years has been through a lot,
Oh my God, it's been through holy hell. Yeah.
and
And it's not ending. It's still going on. I
it's,
mean,
I
not only have they
shared that.
dealt with earthquakes, hurricanes, and now COVID. It's just,
Yeah, I had a gentleman on my show, and we still keep in contact, Rabner, and he has family back in Puerto Rico, and
mhm,
they made it through the hurricanes. They made it somehow, and they made it through the earthquakes and all. So,
mhm.
we keep in contact. But yeah, it's a beautiful place, and I think we could do more than throw paper towels at them. Um,
Yeah,
but
you're kidding.
I'll leave
Yeah.
that I'll leave that for another
Yeah.
to talk about. But yeah, so definitely you would call yourself an environmentalist. I would assume, because um, Islands Under Fire talks about the preservation of those coral reefs, and people don't realize how important like coral reefs are, um, that to the ecology, to um, I've seen documentaries, and it may have may have been one that you worked on, about the importance of coral reefs, and like, part of the ecosystem, how incredibly important that is to preserve stuff like that. And we have a floating island in the Pacific of trash and plastic.
I know. Yeah.
It's like its own
Mhm.
country now. It's growing and growing, and I know people, we've got, I think we got to get a handle on this thing. We only get one Earth. Before we go to and colonize the moon and Mars, we still need to take care of home.
Well, the biggest challenge, is not only the rise of the ocean temperature for and people will say something like, well, it's only like going up, 2 degrees or whatever. And okay, you as a human being, suddenly you've gone up 2 degrees. How do you feel today? Being 2 degrees warmer.
Mhm.
But the main challenge we have is ocean acidification, which is from all of the carbon dioxide being absorbed by the ocean. It makes it more acidic. And the challenge we have in letting the world know about it is that too many syllables. Ocean acidification. Oh yeah, okay, what's that?
What's that?
Whizzes over everyone's head. So yeah, that's as someone who's passionate about the ocean, getting people to take action to prevent ocean acidification
Because it
is
affects the species of fish, and
right.
and
And that's the basis of all life on Earth. It all comes from the ocean. Even now, I mean, every second breath you take in Iowa comes from the ocean. It comes from plankton that are generating oxygen into the air. And people need to be aware of that, even if, they aren't sitting out looking at the brining blue every day, like I am here. I was just going to give you a tangent. That background thing, which I know your radio audience can't see, is Ile de Saint, which is my favorite island in the Caribbean. Not my favorite, but
What's the name of the island again?
Ile de Saint. It's a series of small islands off Guadeloupe. They're French. It's part of the French Caribbean, which means after sailing in their wonderful bay, after scuba diving or snorkeling in their wonderful reefs, you go into town and there are these French cafes, outdoor cafes, where you have exquisite coffee, wonderful food, everything cooked in la cuisine française, can't beat it. Yeah, it was settled by fishermen from Brittany, from Breton, and they're still there. This is really amazing. It's wonderful.
Beautiful place. It looks like a beautiful place.
And no fat American tourists wearing Tilly hats.
Yeah. Just wait. we're all.
I ruined it for them by telling everyone about it on radio.
Rush the island, but gosh. So you do the environmental filmmaking at SCAD. You teach that, and that's a course you created. Tell us a little bit about the creation of that and what what it entails.
Yeah, it's a very different course because we're only in the classroom a handful of times. I take the students out into the field, and the prerequisite is that they have to have taken a documentary class ahead of time, so we don't have to go through the fundamentals of how to conduct an interview, how to find archival footage, how to find stunning visuals, how to edit, how to add music. All of those fundamentals are what I teach in directing a documentary. Once they come into this class, it's time to learn how to put all of these things into action. And so we have a course a lecture on underwater cinematography. We go to a local pool, we take our underwater GoPros, we take underwater housings, and they learn the art of doing that. They learn the art of filming using drones, with drone footage. We go out to Tybee Island, and we do some drone footage there. They learn landscape cinematography. We go camping up in Hunting Island National Park. Have you ever been there? Up the coast in South Carolina?
I don't think I have.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's got this gorgeous boneyard beach, which is, a film artist's delight. We take them to Oatland Island, where they meet biologists who tell them how to film different species of animals. So yeah, that's what the course is all about. And our little motto is, out of the studio and into the wild. And that's what it's about.
That's wonderful, because it's more it's one thing to talk about, but it's another thing to actually put it into practice.
And students have done marvelous films in that class. I mean, one woman did a film on the wild horses in the Midwest, and now she's working for National Geographic. Another woman did a film actually on the wild horses of Cumberland Island. And now she's working for National Geographic. And I had other students they have done films. I encourage them for their final project to get out of Dodge, So we've had 2 films done in Colombia. We've had 2 films done in Iceland. We've had 2 films done in Cuba. Another film done in Alaska. And it was really funny. They wanted to do a film about the Black Plague, which is infecting...
So relevant now.
Absolutely. It's infecting prairie dogs in the Grand Canyon. And I said, guys, that's a long hike. That's a long drive. And I said, are you sure? And I don't let them do things like this unless they have enough of a team that wants to do it. 6 kids in the class said, we'll go. And they ended up renting a little van, driving in shifts all the way out there, filming scientists working with the Black Plague infection, in the Grand Canyon and driving all the way home. I mean, maybe when I was in my younger 20s, I could have done that. But I think nowadays I'd need a good long nap,
Me
to
too.
for that shoot.
I don't know why as kids we fought against taking a nap. As you get
Yeah.
older, you realize, when's my next nap?
Yeah.
But we're going to come back and talk some more here with my guest, Kevin McCarey, here on Savannah on Film. And we'll be back in a few moments. We were going to talk about some Emmy Award winning documentaries and some narratives that you've worked on. And we'll be back in just a moment after these few announcements. So stay with us here on Savannah on Film.
Disasters don't stop even during a pandemic. The Red Cross is here to help when disasters strike. They respond to a disaster every 8 minutes. They help people to prepare for disasters, and they help prevent disasters such as home fires. The Red Cross saves lives by providing blood. And now, free COVID-19 antibody testing is available when donating blood with the Red Cross. More information about Red Cross services and donating blood can be found at www.redcross.org. This is a message from the Georgia State Department of Public Health. Social distancing means minimizing contact with people. It also means that if you are near someone in public, try to stay at least 6 feet away. The less contact people have with one another means the less opportunity for the virus to spread. Slowing the spread of the virus means that we can keep our healthcare system from becoming overwhelmed. More information can be found at dph.georgia.gov.
WRUU brings you the most diverse and passionate local radio programming on the air in Savannah. This all-volunteer and nonprofit community radio station accepts no money from any form of government. Our diversity and independence is made possible only through the generous financial support of listeners like you. We rely on your annual and ongoing monthly contributions to cover the many costs associated with bringing you our broadcast and web programming. If you are a contributor, thank you. If you're not yet a contributor, please show your appreciation of the role WRUU plays in your life by becoming a contributor in any amount. You can donate quickly and easily by credit card or check. Just find the donate and subscribe links at wruu.org. Thanks for listening to and supporting WRUU.
This is WRUU-LP, Savannah, Georgia, 107.5 FM, WRUU.org. We are Savannah Soundings, community radio with global soul.
And we are back here on Savannah on Film. You're listening on the fantastic WRUU 107.5 FM LP, Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. And you're also hopefully listening on WRUU.org. Remember, please, that WRUU is also on Twitter at 107.5. Where is it? WRUU 1075. That's WRUU 1075. And I have got it. It's not all the time you get an Emmy Award winning person on the show here. And I definitely have one here, Kevin McCarey. And just real quick, let's talk about some Emmys. His National Geographic film that he did called Wolfpack was an Emmy Award winner for Best Nature Documentary. Trumpet of Conscience was a National Emmy honoree, Outstanding Public Service Program, an Emmy Award winner for Best Documentary. It goes on. National Geographic Explorer, Deadly Love, an Emmy nomination for Best Documentary Script. Portrait of America series. This is the Hal Holbrook series, which is fantastic. 3 Emmy nominations for writing and directing, and Emmy Award winner for directing. National Geographic Explorer, Killer Cats of the Kalahari. And that was an Emmy nomination for Best Documentary, National Geographic Special, Tigers of the Snow, Primetime Emmy nomination for Best Documentary. But I'm not done. And correct me if I'm wrong here, the CINE,
Cine Golden Eagle, was that it? Yeah.
Cine Golden Eagle Award for the Portrait America series, Golden Eagle Awards winner, for San Juan Story, also a Golden Award winner, National Geographic Explorer, Secret Killers of Monterey Bay, Golden Eagle Award winner, and Trumpet of Conscience also won that award. He has received the George Foster Peabody Award, Portrait of American series, George Foster Peabody Award winner for Outstanding Informational Series, and an Academy Award for San Juan Story. It was a finalist for Best Live Action Short. It goes on and on. You've received, and I wanted to talk about this, one of the ones, and I watched this recently. It is available on YouTube to watch. I put it on the Savannah on Film, a link on the page there for the announcement if you haven't watched it yet. But it's called Extinction, and it received Best Narrative Short, Best Screenplay at the Treasure Cove Film Festival, Best Narrative Short, the Eugene International Film Festival. It was an official selection at the New York City Film Festival and the Manhattan Film Festival. And it is a story set in South Africa, I believe. And let's talk a little bit about Extinction, because that's one of the feathers in your cap among many.
Yeah, right. Well, Extinction was the most recent film I did, and I did it through SCAD. I got, some, they supported it very generously. What inspired it was I was developing a film for National Geographic. Mm-hmm. And it was about the Permian Extinction, which happened hundreds of millions of years ago, right, and wiped out almost all life on Earth, 95% of it, except for this little creature, this little beast that ended up becoming us. Right. But what struck me about the story was something that was really kind of interesting. When the paleontologist most of the bones from that period are found in South Africa. And the paleontologist was, out there searching for bones. And the locals who live there, the local natives, right, have this intuition about finding the bones. They can almost point out and say, look there, sir, look there. And they'll dig, and sure enough, bingo. It's like they know how to read the landscape. But one day they were out in the field and he saw smoke coming up, behind a hill. This was the paleontologist. And he asked the guide, well, what is that? And he said, if it's Thursday, it's cremation day. They had so many dying from malaria, from AIDS, from all of these diseases that they couldn't even bury them. They would just stack them up and burn them. Mm. And I thought, what a kind of a strange and bitter irony. Here's a paleontologist studying an extinction event that happened hundreds of millions of years ago. And right over the hill is an extinction event happening today. And I thought, it just stayed with me. And after I left National Geographic and started working at SCAD, the stories just still kicked around in my head, and I decided to do it as a narrative film. But I decided to do it here in Savannah. And by wonderful stroke of luck, I met a woman who was a native South African who knew how to speak Xhosa, which is one of their many dialects there. And I met another South African gentleman. He was in Atlanta. And I started casting it. Then I had to cast the boy who was the guide.
Who did a wonderful job. Is really part of the film.
He is absolutely the heart of the film. His name was Coltrane Williams, and he was 14 years old in Savannah Arts Academy, and he was brilliant. He not only had to learn his lines in English, of course, but he had to learn them in English with a South African accent. Then he had to learn his lines in Xhosa, which is a click language, not the easiest language in the world. And the other woman who plays the role of his aunt,
Right.
you know, taught him his lines in Xhosa. And then another wonderful SCAD student who plays the older girl he has a feudal crush on. She was a wonderful singer at SCAD. So, I mean, okay, how do we put it in South Africa though? And the reason, one of the things that when we do our environmental film class, I mentioned about how we go up to Hunting Island. It has this extraordinary boneyard beach, which is a beach with all of these gnarled, old, giant, dead trees. I mean, it's absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Just what they have on the coast of South Africa and Namibia. And so I shot part of it there, part of it on Tybee, and the rest of it in those old, dilapidated sheds and buildings in Oatland Island.
Wow.
And that was our African village. So yeah, I mean, it was an incredible experience. But what I loved was that when the film screened in South Africa, South Africans did not know that Coltrane, our young actor, was not South African. His accents were so flawless.
To get right.
Yes, I know. It was amazing. It was really, really amazing. It was filmed by Bear Brown, who he's been with SCAD forever. And man, you talk about someone who, you know, is such an artful cinematographer. He's absolutely wonderful. And he was a pleasure to have on the shoot and a pleasure to work with. And I look forward to working with him again sometime. And except for the Bear, it was an all-student crew. You know, we did it as a course in the summer. SCAD allowed me to use that as sort of a teaching thing. So yeah, it was really a pretty cool experience.
And it's a good quality piece of film. It really,
Yeah.
I mean, I really was drawn to the heart of it, and the imagery, like you said, of, you know, these paleontologists looking for the dead bones, and how that particular I can't remember the name of it. I'm picturing the jawbone or whatever of it.
Yeah, right.
And how that eventually became us, and how he survived, and how he rose up, and the girl in the film. I don't want to give too much away. But it's really a film that you should go to YouTube, and you can go on the Savannah on Film Facebook page and click that link. It's on YouTube, and you really should give it a watch. Very powerful film. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Another one I want to kind of talk about, you were a producer director on, was Trumpet of Conscience. And a very important film about the this is the tagline says it's a visual and musical interpretation of the last Christmas sermon of Martin Luther King Jr. It was an Emmy Award winning film that aired Christmas on TBS for 12 years, and you watch it on Vimeo. It is available on there. Let's talk about that. So tell me about that process and how important that.
Well, I'll tell you about the origin of it, which is interesting. You know, I worked for Ted Turner at the time, known as the Mouth of the South.
Oh yeah, Captain Courageous. You know, there's the yeah. I remember him. I remember him from that, but I remember him as Captain Courageous growing up.
Of course, yeah.
And
he often did, you know, shoot his mouth off at the wrong time. And
at the time,
at the time we had nationally two debates, two challenges we were trying to deal with. One of them was they wanted to have a mobile missile system that would be moved from state to state so the Soviets could not target it. The second challenge we had was Black unemployment, which still continues today, of course.
right.
Ted's solution was, Well, why don't we just take the unemployed blacks and have them tow the missiles from state to state? Well, didn't go over too well with Coretta Scott King, who got on the phone with Ted and read him the riot act, you know. Ted, as his mea culpa, said, all right, let me maybe do right by you. Let me do a film on Martin Luther King. And I had just gotten a couple of Emmy nominations, and he called me up to his office and said, Kev, you know, what we need here, I need you to do a film on Martin Luther King. And I said, okay, let's see what I can do. Well, at the time, there were a number of films out there on the civil rights movement, on all of this sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was researching it, and, you know, I wanted to do something a little bit original and different. And then one of my researchers said, you know, listen to this. And it was the last Christmas sermon he gave at the Ebenezer Baptist Church before he died. And I listened to that sermon, and it was like every wonderful speech he had ever given rolled up in one. Of course, it had the classic I Had a Dream, which we ended the film on, but he talked about world hunger. He talked about peace. He talked about Gandhi. He talked about his philosophy. It was broad-ranging and yet at the same time extraordinarily inspiring. The problem was no one had filmed it. Those were in the days, you know, nobody had little cell phones they were running around with.
We're talking 1985. So
yes, and the only thing that existed was that audio recording, which had been done by Canadian broadcasting, not even by a U.S. broadcasting company. So I decided that I was going to make the first and longest Black gospel music video. And essentially, you know, what I did was I brought in an all-star choir from the Ebenezer Baptist Church, from Morehouse College, from Clark College, a children's choir. And I brought in a composer who I had worked with in Portrait of America, you know, for a number of years, who I really loved. And we brought an audience into the Ebenezer Baptist Church to listen to these performances. And at the same time, we intercut photos of Martin Luther King in his speech delivery mode against the stained glass windows of the Ebenezer Baptist Church. And then to go with his words, in addition to the music, I got footage from the Peace Corps, from, you know, old news footage, from my old films that I had done when he talked about the environment, from everything, and just spliced this all together. I had no idea whether this was going to work or not. I kept going over budget because I'd never worked with archival footage before, and I didn't realize how expensive it was to buy stuff, you know. And, you know, I went 4 times over budget.
wow.
And I would be brought into the office of the vice president of TBS and say, now you're twice over budget, Kevin. When are you going to be done? And I said, you know, I know it's a problem, but you may want to talk to Ted about that, knowing that Ted was going to
was all in.
Yeah, do it, whatever it takes, do it, you know. So anyway, we finished the film. We had a wonderful premiere in Chicago with, you know, some of the legends from the civil rights movement. And we aired it. It aired on Turner Broadcasting just before Christmas, every Christmas for 12 years, which was pretty amazing, you know. Yeah.
It became a staple. And it's probably every bit as relevant. I mean, especially the message of Dr. King and peace and economic disparity and
everything.
It all of it
up. Yeah.
Is so relevant in 2020 more than ever. And, you know, sometimes it feels like we've gone a step forward, but we've gone a couple steps back, and
Yeah, absolutely.
and we're going to get it right this time.
Yeah.
And I'm convinced of that.
There's a link to the film, by the way, on my website, if anyone.
Oh yeah. By the way, yeah.
About
Please.
40, I think somewhere between 36 and 40 minutes long. I can't remember.
And that is kevinmccary.com.
.com, right? Yeah.
Yeah, and that's where you can find links to all of his work, including his Islands Under Fire and Oceans Apart books there. And those are also available like on Amazon and wherever you get your books, et cetera, et cetera. I want to talk a little bit about San Juan's Story from 1991. You were a writer-director. It's an award-winning narrative set in Puerto Rico. We talked a little bit about it, but let's tell me about that experience.
I'll tell you about the origins of it. I had just finished a portrait of Puerto Rico for Portrait of America. And there was a young filmmaker in Puerto Rico who had just had some great connections to Puerto Rican rum companies. And so they decided they wanted to do a documentary on rum. So he called me up and he said, do you want to come on down and do a documentary on rum? And I said, well, let's talk it over. So I went down there.
Let's talk.
And it was a lot of money they had. And I thought, his name was Noel Quinones, and he's still a great friend today. He said, Noel, let's not do a documentary. Let's do a couple of narrative films. You're a young filmmaker, I'll write both of them. I'll direct one of them. You direct the other. You produce both of them, and the rum companies will pay for them. And he went, let's give it a try. So San Juan's Story is about a rum taster, who is sort of like, wine tasters, that sort of elegant charisma, who loses his sense of smell, And so as a result, he's out of business. And his friends, who his drinking buddies, who he meets with for coffee every day and sings with and talks and drinks and whatever, they have their ideas on how to solve his problem. And his wife, who he ignores, has another idea on how to solve his problem. And I won't tell you anymore because you can watch the film, and it is a comedy. And Noel's film was more dramatic. It was called The Bell. And it was also set in a rum place back in the 19th century, the early 19th century. And that was more of a drama based on this haunting story of whenever the slave bells, after slavery ended, whenever one would hear the bells ringing, it meant a death in the village.
Wow. And
they would just ring on their own. And so that's what that other story was. And he did very well on that. And based on that, he got to do a feature film. Yeah. So yeah, that was San Juan's Story. Yeah, I really loved doing it. It was a fun piece.
It was a 1991 Academy Award semi-finalist, and you can watch it on Vimeo. Well, we're to the point we need to wrap it up for the radio here, but we're going to continue recording here. And continue on YouTube. So I'm going to ask everybody to join us on YouTube at Savannah on Film, and I'm going to peer into the future. That'll be after the show debuts on WRUU.org or 107.5 FM in Savannah. Savannah on Film. We'll have the show from 7 to 8 p.m. That's Eastern Standard Time. I keep forgetting, I have guests on here from other time zones, and I forget sometimes to mention that. But we're on the, Eastern time here. That's from 7 to 8 p.m. this Saturday, and which would be September 12th, I believe, 2020. And then at 8 p.m. right after that premiere on the radio, we'll have the video premiere of all of this, and with your questions and comments on YouTube at Savannah on Film. And don't go anywhere, Kevin, because we've still got more to talk about, and don't y'all go anywhere. But thank you, everybody listening on the radio so far here on Savannah's WRUU 107.5 FM. We're Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. And so I'm going to roll the outro here. And thank you, Kevin, for a fantastic show so far. I'm learning a lot, and we still got a lot more to talk about. So,
all right. Well, thanks. Look forward to it.
All right. So hang on, everybody, and we'll see you on the radio next time, and we'll see you on YouTube in just a minute. Okay. You have been listening to another episode of Savannah on Film, where we give a voice to the Savannah film community. Please like our Facebook page, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and follow us on Twitter. This program was originally broadcast on 107.5 FM in Savannah, Georgia, and worldwide on www.wruu.org. Join us next time for more intriguing insights into the vibrant Savannah film community here at Savannah on Film. And welcome to the future. It is now Saturday, September 12th, 2020. Welcome to the bonus portion of our show here, Savannah on Film, where we talk to people in the film industry. And as we say, our purpose is to explore the economic and cultural impacts of the film industry from people who work in industry and related fields. You can always hear us every Saturday from 7 to 8 p.m. on WRUU 107.5 FM LP. We are Savannah Soundings Community Radio with Global Soul. And as a reminder, WRUU is on Twitter at WRUU1075 if you want to follow WRUU and find out about our fantastic programming. We have very eclectic mix of information, shows, entertainment, news, music, stuff you won't hear on anywhere in Savannah or, on terrestrial radio. And it's also on the internet, wruu.org. So if you want to check that out, that would be fantastic. I'm back with a gentleman that we could probably fill several hours and several shows with just on his accomplishments alone. His name is Kevin McCarey, and welcome back, Kevin, to Savannah on Film. He is an Emmy Award-winning writer, director, He's a teacher at SCAD with environmental filmmaking and directing documentary at the Savannah College of Art and Design. He does that. He's a published author. What don't you do?
I wish I could have played Major League Baseball. That was that would have really been nice. I would have liked to have been part of the Braves team, which had scored 29 runs yesterday. But yeah, no. So, no, I feel really lucky. I've pretty much gotten to do the things that I've wanted to do in life. And yeah, no, there's really not much else. Right now, what I'm working on is it's a little stretch for me. I've written a couple of novellas, and I'm kind of shaping those along with 2 short stories. And the thing is, I've never really had the gift of writing prose. A good friend of mine who we brought here at the Savannah Book Festival, T.C. Boyle. I mean, I look at one page that he's written and that he's probably knocked off in an hour or two, and it would take me a month to write that same page. He's got such a beautiful gift. I'm better sort of with character dialogue and story. That's it, So the descriptives really are time consuming for me. but it's kind of, I'm enjoying it because what else are we going to do? You know,
Right, we
we
can't
can't do films now, you know. I'm sure we will be able to, you know, maybe by 2021, but
yeah, it's really tough right now, the film industry. And I wanted to say real quick, yeah, I write poetry, and I'm a content creator as well. And I have a podcast. I have this show, and which is also a podcast. And it's tough sometimes. I have a couple of friends, and especially one who is he puts out so much content, and he's just like constantly creating. And I'm a creative person, and I know you probably any creative feels this way, but you know, if you don't create, you feel like you've wasted like an entire day if you haven't written something, or you haven't, you know, formulated that idea that's been kicking around in your head.
right on the money.
And
Absolutely right.
it's
Yeah.
like, you know, but the one of the things is, you know, comparing ourselves to other people. And sometimes it'll get me down because I'll see other people that are doing this and doing that, and I'm like, well, I should be doing that. But you know, we all have our different paces. We all have, you know, like I write poetry, so it's, you know, I had a big burst of time towards the end of 2019 where I wrote about 30 poems that I'm really proud of, and I was in the process. I was going to put a book out, poetry. That was my plan for 2020, and well, COVID came along and changed everything. But it made me reevaluate things, and then the social unrest that's going on, and the election, and all that stuff that is in the ethos, and you know, it's interesting to see how that's going to affect creatives, and what's going to become of 2020. All the things, it's like 2020 is an interesting year.
Yeah.
We can look at it as totally catastrophic. You know, COVID has touched members of my family, you know, in a bad way. And as what, you know, there's not many people that it hasn't at this point, and we don't know if it's going to get worse, especially, you know, at the entertainment industry. I love going to films. I love the film experience. I have a few friends that have ventured safely, doing everything they can to go see films. And I've discovered the drive-in experience is awesome because there's very little contact, but it's just not the same as being in a theater and experiencing film. And you know, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I feel the same thing about what you're talking about. I love film. I love sitting in a theater. I mean, there's nothing like it. I just cannot get into all of these series that are on, you know, everywhere, on every single venue imaginable. It's like overload. And I remember, you know, when I was, you know, in film school, or when I was a student, you know, you could talk about certain novels, you know, and most of us had kind of read the same novels, Catch 22 or whatever. And so we could talk about them in class. Most of them had seen the same films that came out, so you could talk about them. And even the TV shows, you know, you were limited to basically 3 channels, you know, and there was a couple.
I was the remote. You had to get up and turn the channel for your parents.
Absolutely. But, you know, I ask my students, you know, what are they watching and what do they like? They have nothing in common. They're all watching something completely different. And what is kind of lost is that shared experience, you know, that you can talk about it and kick things around. Yeah, there are a handful of series that everyone feels obligated to watch,
Right.
but, you know, on the whole, I've never been into series, mainly because, you know, as a writer, usually by episode 5, I've got the formula down in my head, and I know from the first 5 minutes everything that's going to happen in the rest of the show, and I can't watch it, you know.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to watch a film, it's still hard for me to just watch it on the little screen alone at home, you know. I really want to see it up there.
Yeah, and Hollywood is doing its best. I know. There was recently, though, a commercial project. I saw a headline where a gentleman
Mm-hmm.
who was an associate producer got COVID and he passed away. And they're saying, you know, what is the safety measures? Are they the same for commercial work? in some of the industrials versus, what the unions are doing with,
Mhm.
EGA and everything else. And I worry about the protocols. I worry about the protocols of films that, the low budgets, the ultra low budgets, where there's not. We've talked about this on previous shows about uh, on Savannah on Film here. We've talked about, I've talked with different professionals about my concern wasn't the big Hollywood productions, the Disney productions, the Tyler Perry, whatever, that's coming down the pipeline. Mine is because the cost is going to be about roughly 20% of the budget now has to go to, COVID and being safe and social
Mhm.
distancing and all the wonderful measures that they're trying to put in place. But I wonder how a smaller film or, a lower budget, a lower tier film, how how seriously they take it. And I did have a guest that said, well, they do take it more seriously because, these are people that are ultra passionate. And I'm talking about students,
Mhm.
graduated students that are making their films. Um, and you can speak to, teaching these filmmakers how has, I know it's affected how things are done at SCAD, and what are your thoughts on it? I'm
It's
sure that SCAD's
interesting.
great.
Yeah, you bring that up because just before we started this session there,
Mhm.
I talked to a former grad student of mine, Mehmet Chalian, and he runs a local film company now. He's doing a series of films for the Savannah ports because usually when the port authority wanted to bring someone from other countries in to bring their ships in here, they would fly in, they would look at the port facilities, and they can't do that now. They can't come here. So Mehmet now is doing films about what the Savannah ports have to offer, shipping companies. However, it's a time of COVID. And so as a real, very excellent and caring and wonderful documentary filmmaker, he's putting in a set of protocols. And there are some shoots that he said, we can't do it because you want a gathering of 15 or 20 people together. And no.
Yeah, do it safely.
And there's another thing where he had a gathering of, I believe it was somewhere between 4 and 6 longshoremen who were supposed to have a talk about that. But he had them each separated 6 feet apart. And to create the illusion that they were all kind of together, he had to rent more cameras and have cameras set, on each of them.
Okay.
And then he actually did a drone shot too, to kind of get that full shot of coming up from them up to the port. So the class starts next week at SCAD, and Mehmet is going to come to my first documentary class, and he's going to talk about the real life challenges that a documentary filmmaker faces, and that how he has dealt with them as a working professional who cares very much about adhering to COVID protocols. I mean, not only the masks, but the thing, how do you do the sound? How do you go up to somebody now and put a mic on them? How do you do all of those procedures, And he's going to go through that for my
Correct
class.
way is that
Wonderful.
you throw the mic pack at them and run.
Yeah, yeah. And then say, okay, put it on yourself, dude. You can do it.
You got
Yeah.
You're hired.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what I'm doing in that particular class. I'm bringing in a working pro, who's actually doing, because I haven't had to do it in the real world. I haven't been making films this past year, but he's out there doing it. I think it's important to hear
Yeah,
from
he's
working
awesome,
pro.
awesome guy. I've had him on
Yeah.
on film before. He's been a guest. And
Yeah,
he's a fantastic individual and
yeah.
knows what
Oh,
he's doing.
Mehmet, you've had him on?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, yes.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, 2020, I mean, is, we're getting the flare ups and now we think the curve is going down again, but things are a little bit worse than they were back, had we all stayed in and done the right thing. And, I don't want to, it's another thing. It's like the Oscars, how the Oscars are pushing,
Mhm.
into April. Basically, we'll get the Oscars in April, and they'll include. I don't know. I just feel like maybe you don't have an Oscars this year. Maybe you just put an asterisk by it, in the book and say,
Yeah.
COVID, and then 2021 we pick up there. I don't know. I think if there's a bright spot in any of this, is something I've always thought is, especially with the drive-ins, they're allowing, films that probably wouldn't have gotten to see the light of day because the theaters closed down, but people could safely go to even reduced capacity. We could go, I mean, you could see films, but there are some films that we've had #1 films that, doing some box office, but they're doing it through drive-throughs. And now slowly, AMC's opened, thankfully, and people are trailing in. We had Tenet release, and I had a friend to go and see that, and he was telling me all the wonderful procedures they were doing to keep, things sanitary and clean, and from how you get your drinks. And we're going to do an episode on my Geek Homeworld podcast talking about that, how, and he's got photos of, the whole thing. And so we're going to talk about that later. But the industry is trying to get back on its feet, but it's going to take a lot of people taking this virus very seriously, because it's touched more people than people realize, and
Of course, everyone's worried about, the fall bump, which may be inevitable, obviously, because, you have the regular flu coming around, which weakens you and makes you more susceptible to the
and
virus.
it's hard, I'm someone who's diabetic, so I've had to take myself out of the equation.
Absolutely,
I
yeah,
had to turn down some gigs that
yeah,
might have taken, but I have to think about my safety, my family's safety, and more importantly, I think about others. I'm wearing a mask all the time, and I'm just doing that because it's not just to protect myself, but to protect others. And I think
yeah.
it's the least we can do, and that's my opinion about it. But what I'm kind of driving.
I think Walmart is also turning their parking lots, some of them, into drive-ins.
Yeah, they were
Have
talking.
they done that locally in Savannah, do you know?
I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah.
I remember when they announced that, and I said, well, that's really great. That's really great. That's a great idea, and
I grew up in the country in upstate New York on the Hudson River Valley, and our our theater was the drive-in theater, you know. And I mean, we rarely went there really to watch the films. You went there to make out with your girlfriend because that was the only place you could do it. And I'll just I'll just tell you one story. I don't know if people will do it nowadays, but in order to save money, one of us would usually hide in the trunk.
Well, that's what I asked you, because we went to the Jessup Drive-In Theater, which is the oldest one in Georgia.
Yeah.
And it was running very well. Everybody had masks on, and they had half capacity, and you have 2 separate screens and all that. And we got to go see, because we had to get out of the house, and we were watching we saw the new Bill and Ted film, and a double feature in Unhinged with Russell Crowe.
Oh.
And there was this fantastic lightning storm. I took a few photos of it, but I wish it reminded me of the movie Twister, because the lightning was flashing everywhere, and the film was going on, and you're listening to it on your radio in the car, and the rain is like pelting down. And then later on, the moon was out. So, I was like, oh, we got a Twister. We have cows. But the film industry has had to adapt in how we watch films, but how we make them. And it's so important that, we follow these guidelines like the DGA sent down, and PGA and stuff like that. And because we got to do it right, and if you have a film, and if you're someone with little to no budget, and you're making a film, you have to put safety at the forefront of everything. Because you can't afford for you know, your actors or anybody, your cinematographer, your sound mixer, whatever, you know, if you have any background actors, they don't like to be called extras, background actors, you gotta take it serious.
I think you know, we're really not going to get into the swing of things till there truly is a vaccine. I mean, that's going to be the only
Right. And then are
salvation.
people confident enough that
Yeah,
they don't think that these vaccines were rushed, you know, and will they take the vaccine? And
yeah, I
there's
know.
all these, you know, and
Yeah, Fauci says, you know, probably the first quarter of 2021 is
unfortunately
realistic.
we take things and politicize them. You know,
Yeah,
this is a
yeah,
health issue that affects
yeah, I know.
everybody, and you know, COVID doesn't care who you are or how much
Yeah,
money you have in the bank. You know, it's a great equalizer, if you want to call it that, in a way. And but yeah,
I'm
to the
wondering
point,
how,
go
because
ahead.
we hear Savannah is, I saw something, you know, in the paper that said that, you know, Savannah's film industry should be bouncing back um, sooner rather than later. And, you know, I don't know how realistic that is. I
I think
mean,
that's a little optimistic,
yeah,
because yeah, there were two or three films that were supposedly scouting, and I, I don't trust it necessarily.
yeah,
You know, scouting, you know, I could go out driving right now and say I'm scouting. You know, it's not to be little, you know, location scouting. It's very important, very vital. But actually getting to where you can set up a production, you know, if something's filming, you've got to set up, the office has got to get set up way before anything, you know,
absolutely. Yeah.
principal photography. And then there's, you know, we've talked before, we went through on an episode of Savannah on Film, we talked about, or we may have done it on the podcast too, but I think we did it on Savannah on Film. But I had a friend who worked, he's worked in several productions, and I'm holding a pen right here. Well, nobody on the radio is here. And so you've seen this on YouTube. Yeah, I'm holding a pen here. Let's
Mm,
say we're in the office, and you say, hey, I need a pen. I can't hand you my pen. Because, you know,
yeah.
it goes down to minute things like that, you know, you can't, the handshake is gone, you know,
Mhm.
a fist bump is, unless it's maybe a family member or somebody you're living with, that, you know, and it's so weird, and juxtaposed to the wonderful comedy of George Carlin. I grew up on George Carlin and a lot of other comedians, and he talks about how we have an immune system. And he said, we swam in the Hudson River in toxic water, and we were fine, you know. But
Yeah.
things are a little bit different today. I mean, you know, you don't want to, you got to take it seriously. And I don't mean to harp on it, but all of this is talking about, you know, I hope that people that are making films that don't have the budget, or they don't perceive they have the budget, they need to have the budget for the preventative medical measures, and, you know, taking temperatures, and a lot of these things could hamper a lot of lower budget films, you know, because sometimes there are corners cut, you know, and you can't do that, because it could be life or death, and you don't know. It just takes one person, and your whole, even though it may be a small group of filmmakers, you still got to socially distance, and you got to figure out how your actors are going to be, you know, they got to have their makeup on. Are they going to apply the makeup? How, you know, are you going to have a hazmat suit on basically to apply, you know?
Sure. Are you going to have a two-shot, you know, or
I
you know,
mean,
have the over the shoulder? What are you going to
is
have?
everything going to be a drone shot?
Yeah,
Everything
right.
drone film, you know? I don't know. And so um, it's interesting to see how universities, schools, all levels are adapting. And I know SCAD's going to do everything in their power to make it safe for their students, and
Well, you know, hats off to SCAD really for very early in the game saying we're going virtual this fall.
they got some pushback from that. I know, because
Of
I'm in a
course,
lot of the groups there,
yeah,
and they're
which
like,
makes sense, you know, because you know you're paying good money and you want to get the access to this and access to that.
right,
But I mean, the fact that they're, you know, they took the health of the community being their faculty as well as the students, as well as you know the infrastructure
right.
of the school. They took that into account very quickly and made the very hard decision to, you know, to do that. And we have, been going very thoroughly through various safety protocols
Right.
for those films that are allowed to go forward. And they're going to be very strict on enforcing
Yeah, there's
those
gonna have to be
protocols.
supervision on
Yeah,
that part,
right.
and
Yeah, so yeah, it's tough, but I'm just I feel really good about the way they went about it, and I know the sacrifices that they've had to make
right.
as a school.
Hmm.
Who knows what's going to happen? My own gut feeling is we're going to see a bump in the fall. Hopefully by the end of the first quarter of of 2021, we'll have a vaccine, but that will just go, to people like me, or people with health conditions like you,
Yeah,
and of course the healthcare workers. Because we have 350 million people in this country. You're not going to generate 350 million vials of vaccine. And they're now saying that for it to be effective, you may need more than one shot. So you're talking 1 billion shots.
Herd immunity isn't, in my opinion, the way to go. We don't need to lose, I don't know, 1/3 of the population of the US to, get through this. And there's got to be a better way. So, but I don't mean to harp on this, but it's like it's the elephant in the room that you can't ignore, and how we do this. I mean, technology is really allowing us. I mean, I think not just within the film industry, but outside, obviously, of the industry too. Companies, corporations, they're all learning that a lot of stuff can be done virtual. Not everything's the same as hands-on. I'm a hands-on kind of person. You can instruct me, but you kind of need that feedback, and that instructor, that student kind of feedback. It's hard. I'm sure it's hard, to do it video to video, and you're like, because not everybody's you get, I don't know, 50 people, 100 people in a Zoom call. It's not, and somebody doesn't have a great connection, or if people don't have proper access to internet, it's hard for them to interact that way and get that one-on-one. And but how we make films, and beyond actually how we make films, I think we're realizing that going forward, a lot of brick and mortar stuff is going to disappear. We don't need, you may not need, like a business, let's say, doesn't need to spend $1 million in New York City for a brick and mortar building when they can work remotely, and finding out, that their work-life balance is much better for employees. I mean, we're going to learn a lot of things.
That said, we do need a big brick and mortar here in Savannah.
We need a big film
studio.
Yes,
exactly. A real live studio.
I talk about that on every show. That's been a part for 2 years or 2 or 3 years. I've done this show that we've talked about infrastructure, and this, before pandemic and now during pandemic, we need, we could take at least one soundstage from Tyler Perry's studio and put it somewhere in Savannah. Come on.
What's
Savannah.
really incredible about Savannah is Savannah can be any time period, any place in the world. Mm-hmm. I have a film in development that's set in Cuba in 1900 during the Great Yellow Fever outbreak among the American Army of Occupation. And I went to Cuba and I looked at where the American headquarters was for the Army headquarters. Mm-hmm. I looked at the residence of the Cuban doctor who had was the first one to decide it was caused by the mosquito. I looked at the areas where the experiments on the soldiers were conducted to prove that the mosquito was the carrier of yellow fever. And some of them were even in sugarcane fields. Wow. I found all of those locations in Savannah. I found the exact replica of Army headquarters. I found a building that looked just like the building that in Havana, that the Cuban doctor lived in. I found the buildings where they did the experiments. And I remember turning to Andy Young, I think it was, and saying, you know, the only thing I haven't been able to find are sugarcane fields. And he said, we have them. I said, no. He said, oh yeah, outside of Savannah, we have sugarcane fields.
Plenty of mosquitoes.
Yeah, I know, and we have the mosquitoes.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh God.
And
Yeah.
Will Smith will tell you that we have plenty of gnats.
Yes, I know, yeah.
For any reason.
But yeah, I mean, if they would only build that studio, we would actually put Atlanta to shame with the kind of stuff that we could do here, you know.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's really
a
incredible.
good mix of old and new. And
You've got the ocean,
yeah.
you know.
The only thing we don't have are mountains. You know,
The
so far,
wetlands.
you know,
That's
who
it.
knows, a volcano could pop up
Yeah,
in town.
right.
It's
Green-
2020.
Green screen it. Green screen the mountain.
Green between the mountains, right there by
Yeah.
the mountains and the beach.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about, I don't think we talked about Coyotes, your 1999
Right.
writer-director. It's another narrative film that was filmed in
Right.
Mexico. Let's chat a little bit. Tell us about the Coyote.
That was the one, once again, like Extinction, it was inspired by work with National Geographic. I did the film Sea Monsters, in
Mhm.
which we were filming in the Sea of Cortez, Mexico. And on my scout to go down there, I was looking for a place where our research vessel could dock. And I went to this wonderful town called Laredo, and they said, oh yeah, they're building a resort area just down the road, and they have a dock and nobody's there. So I went to the resort area, and there was almost nothing there. You know, there was an empty pool that was shattered. There were half of buildings. It was this bizarre ghost town. And out of a mobile home camp comes this derelict old hippie with wild hair and everything. And I said, oh, excuse me, are you the watchman? He said, well, no, I'm the recreation coordinator when we build the thing. And I thought, yeah, right. Anyway, he was this really eccentric character. The location was amazing. We got to use the dock there. And then he was talking about, oh, we're going to build this. They had been years working on this thing. There were no workers there. It was in the middle of the week. There was just him, the recreation coordinator, you know, so-called. Anyway, that inspired the story of Coyotes, in which a pair of drifters, father-daughter, who are from the Pacific Northwest, where and they are, you know, they work, you know, picking crops, and a lot of families did that, you know, and in the story they run into a character very similar to this this wild hippie derelict recreation coordinator, and he tells them that if they only come to this town in Mexico, they don't have to pick apples and plums anymore. They can work in this resort. And so the story is them coming down to the resort area and then discovering, we filmed it in that same location that I had seen in National Geographic. Well, I had no money to do this. My wife was a producer. She'd been working as an editor. She worked as a production coordinator on Pirate Tales. The DP was a guy who I worked with on National Geographic and other films, who worked for free. It was what you were talking about before, the difference between low budget, no budget, and what was the other one you said? Ultra low budget. Well, fortunately, no one had to pay anything. So I had this whole crew fly down to Laredo. Now, normal people who are doing a no budget film do a 2-character domestic drama in the town they're living in. No, that wasn't me. I had to get everybody down to this remote little area of Laredo, you know, and all of our money went into putting them up at a hotel. I told them, here's the deal. you're not going to get paid anything. I'm going to sign something that allows you a share in the profits. You will never see a nickel from that, you know? and,
At least you're
and
honest.
they said, okay. I said, but you will be well housed and well fed. Well, if you've ever worked on a film crew, well fed are the two magic words, you know?
I've worked on a ultra low budget before
Yeah.
early in my career, and they didn't feed that,
Yeah.
you know, it was pizza. I'm like, and chips. I'm like, no.
Yeah, I know.
And
So we shot the film in 9 days. It was a feature film. I went and did some second unit just with the DP. I got footage from National Geographic at a cut rate deal, which is they basically gave it to me, and we put together the feature film, and it was an audience favorite at Palm Springs. It wasn't done in time to go to Sundance, and at Palm Springs, people from the Savannah Film Festival saw it, asked us to bring it to the Savannah Film Festival, which we did, and we were fortunate, you know, to win Best Feature Film there at the Savannah Film
that
Festival.
was in 1999, so long ago.
Yeah, it's at the beginning of the film festival, right? Yeah,
It was the
yeah,
Savannah International Film Festival.
yeah.
And
So it was a fun shoot, and
yeah.
it was great working with friends and some old friends of mine who I knew from New York, you know, flew down to act in the film, and you know, and once again, I had a young talent. I had a young actress. She was 14, and she was amazing. She was just a great talent. She was wonderful.
Yeah. And I do want to say something. If anybody watching this or interacting with us in this part of the video here on YouTube at Savannah on Film, that's anyone that sees this, we're not trying to say that if you don't have a budget, don't make a film. We're not saying
Yeah,
that.
not at all.
In the ultra low budget or your low budget film,
Yeah.
I've been a part of and honored to be a part of some that I've worked sound on and done other things on. And we encourage you to do that. One of the things we talk about at Savannah on Film that kind of goes along with infrastructure is something that I like to say. Only Nirvana could have came out of Seattle. You know,
Yeah.
I really want, one of the focuses of Savannah on Film, this show, is to give a spotlight to local filmmakers, and you know, in all
Right.
different departments, and to really. I know that SCAD is doing it. I know that the Georgia Film Academy out there at Savannah Tech, they're doing a great job putting out film professionals, and they're making some really great content. And you know, these are the next leaders of the industry. Some of them that I've been fortunate enough to have on my show that have, you know, I see some of the stuff they're doing, and I usually watch everybody that's been on my show and people I'm trying to get on the show, and I want to just very much encourage you to do films. And it's not, you know, you'll do films, and you're taught this in film school. You'll do films for free. You'll do films that are passion projects. You'll do them for friends, but you come to a point where you have to know your value. And you have to say, okay, because you're a friend, I'm going to cut my rate. Okay, then I'm going to cut it more. And then before you know it, you're doing it for free, you know? But there are some things you will do for free if you're passionate enough. I've done there was a film I did that I liked the script so much. I'm like, I have to be a part of it. And then there was another film that I wish I was a part of that film. And that film is constantly winning awards now, and I would have been I would have been the sound mixer on it. And you know, you kick yourself sometimes you don't pick the project. It's like the one that got away. And then, but I really want to encourage, I want this show to really help focus on not just people that have already made it like you, that have a fantastic career and wonderful body of work that you've created. But for those people coming up, I want to empower you and just let you know that you know, stop thinking about it. Just get out there and do it. You know, pick up that camera, you know, start writing that screenplay, you know, do it today. If you can't make a film right now, guess what you could be doing? You could be writing a bunch of scripts. or you can use the technology we have to co-write with someone, or you got your screenwriter who you can use whatever Zoom platform, whatever you have, but just keep creating. Don't stop creating just because the world may have stopped. Quite literally, everything shut down and may shut down again. We don't know. Don't stop. Right now, I think I'm trying to look at 2020. I always try to look at things in a positive, frame, but also being realistic. But the positive thing, I think, for me, 2020, I've learned a lot of skills on the production side here, that allows me to do my show remotely. And I didn't have a lot of those skills when I started the show. And so, it's kind of like, here's time to put in that hard work. Don't just sit there on the couch watching doom and gloom on TV.
Mhm.
And the world's going to work itself out,
I'd like to sort of, add
Sure.
one more thing before I kind of sign off, which is
Yeah.
pretty much have to do now.
Okay.
But and that is, if you're doing a low budget film or a no budget film, or even if you're doing sort of a larger budget film, the most important thing is the sense of community that you create on the set.
Definitely.
And there's a whole bunch of golden rules I have, which I talk to with my students. Among them is that, you're going to have conflicts, but you never have them in public. You always take people aside and be gracious about it. You always have to include everybody, in the process, so they feel like they're contributing to it. In other words, listen to ideas that anyone has. Of course, the director is always going to have the final say, and yet you have to be open to at least listening to other people's ideas. And it's really important that you respect everyone else on the crew, and that you don't have, just because it's your idea and it's your film and you want to direct it. Guess what? It's not yours exclusively. You have brilliant actors at work. You have editors who are at work. You have musicians who are bringing their talent to it. One of the things when I did my other films, I was asked by the producer, well, do you want to put a film by Kevin McCarey on it in the lead? And I said, no, because it's not a film by Kevin McCarey. It's a film by everyone who was on that set. Yes, I was the writer, and yes, I was the director. That's plenty. That's my role. Put that in the credit. I don't need a film by credit. Woody Allen does the same thing. He doesn't allow a film by Woody Allen in the credits for the exact same reason. It's the talent's film as well as your own film. And so on that note, that feeling of creative generosity, to me, I think that's an important thing to take away for young people.
It's also, I think in tow with that is also like mentorship. When you create something, or in your respective department, bring somebody on board, pass on your knowledge, and take what you've learned. I mean, there's nothing greater than giving back, and then, and helping foster that dream that could become a reality. You never know. It might be the next Spielberg that you're helping out, and they'll remember that on their path, upwards. And checking your ego at the door. I think you're kind of talking about that too, in a way. Just because you're the director doesn't mean that everybody else is important. It's like, just because it says CEO or whatever, or you're a director or whatever. Yes, you have that above the line role, but the thing is, you didn't make that film alone unless you shot everything and did the lighting and did everything yourself. Then that's different. But it's taking that ego out of it and realizing the strengths of your entire team, and I think that's a great way to end this. I know there was much more to talk about, but Kevin, I thank you so much. For your talent, for this wonderful body of work that you've created, and you're going to be creating more. And the door is always open for you to come back. And I want to thank everybody who has hopefully watching this video now. I want to say, please hit the subscribe button here on YouTube, Savannah on Film. you can enable those notifications for new content that we have. And if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and check out the rest of our channel. We really appreciate all of your input and your questions, your comments, and everyone who's interacted with Savannah on Film via Facebook, via YouTube, and everywhere else. And I really appreciate it. And I'm thankful for the opportunity to have such professionals like Kevin here to come on and share their knowledge with us. And thank you for what you do, Kevin. And please check out kevinmccary.com, and you'll see links to the films that he has that we've talked about, and some more that we didn't get a chance to talk about. Plus there's Oceans Apart and Islands Under Fire, 2 fabulous books. I'm definitely gonna check out Oceans Apart when I get a chance there. And it seems like a very fascinating story. So, and your life is very fascinating. So thank you for sharing that with us.
All right. Well, thanks for having me.
All right. Well,
all right.
This video is about to end very abruptly. So, but
Yeah.
thank you everyone. So
Okay.
this has been Savannah on Film, and bye. Take care.
All right. Next time.